Dear LLSP alumni and alumni, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn interview. Our guest today is Ms. Zakia Afrin. Ms. Afrin is one of our sister alumni. She and I were in the first virtual cohort, the LLP class of 2020. Ms. Afrin is also an advocate for women of color who suffer abuse through Maitri, which is a Bay Area organization, and an adjunct professor of international law at Golden Gate University in San Francisco, California. She studied in Bangladesh, the US, and the Netherlands, and brings a global understanding of Islam to her classes, among them Introduction to Islamic Law and Peace and Conflict Studies. Ms. Afrin has published in popular and academic forums on the topics of Islamophobia, feminism, domestic violence, and Islam, to mention just a few. She also hosts a quarterly podcast, Auditya Betar in Bangla, on Bangladesh, women and society. She's also the mother of a young child. Frankly, I don't know how she manages it all. I've asked Ms. Afrin to speak to us today about her work with SpaandanB, a charitable organization focused on the development of Bangladesh. Ms. Afrin is currently the secretary of the organization. Dear Zakia, I know you're an incredibly busy woman, so I feel blessed you were able to make some time to talk to us today. As you know, I've asked you here to speak about SpaandanB, so please correct my pronunciation if I've mangled the title. I am curious about when it was started and what its mission is and how it carries out this mission.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me. KARAMAH's LLP program has been a truly learning experience for me, and I'm really thrilled to be able to stay connected with the group. Also, I just want to clarify that because of my role as an advocate working with the community members, I'm just much more visible. I'm not any more busy than anybody else. I'm just it's just the nature of my work that people tend to see me a lot more, and my work is seen around the community. You said it perfectly, SpaandanB. The B stands for Bangladesh, and it means heartbeat of Bangladesh, actually, in Bangla. I have been associated with this organization since 2011. But this began in 1998 in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are a registered nonprofit, 501c in the US, and our activities are mostly around development in Bangladesh for the Bangladeshi citizens there. Now, this was started by a group of friends. As we know that in Silicon Valley, mostly engineers from Bangladesh, they began this organization not so much as a charity, but as a calling, as a moral dictate, felt the responsibility to give back from where we got our education from, with the limited resources that our country was able to provide us with education and health and others. So the mission of our organization is tied with that feeling to establish an equitable and just access for all people in Bangladesh for education, health, and of course, economic needs. Over the years, we have also gotten involved with humanitarian needs. And now, after so many years, from 1998 to 2021, we see that the community has accepted us, mostly in San Francisco Bay Area and also around US. They have certain expectation from us. So if there is a natural disaster, if there is something happening back in the country, we hear from the community that, how are you going to address this? How do we make sure that our donation goes to the right place that we want to help with? To give you an example, during the pandemic, actually, we began a fundraising effort within the 2 weeks of shutdown worldwide, and the response was just immense. People from all around the US and even outside the US, they pitched in, they wanted to help with food, with safety, with whatnot. So that's been our major activity to help people in Bangladesh. Now, recently we have also began helping the local community with our volunteers, and it kind of accelerated during the pandemic, because we have so many, as you know, people in need and so many unhoused people here in California. So we started, giving them the same kind of relief that we are trying to do in Bangladesh. We provided food, we provided backpacks for school children. Our volunteers, mostly youth, they have been baking cakes for foster children and others. We have been honoring the doctors, the nurses, the frontline fighters in this pandemic. So a little bit expanded during the pandemic, and that's how we are going about right now.
I'm just curious, in the San Francisco Bay Area, are there a lot of doctors and medical professionals from Bangladesh who are working there?
So in the demographic in the San Francisco Bay Area is mostly professional Bangladeshis. So yes, most engineers and doctors and in other professional categories. And then we also have, our brothers and sisters who are also doing different types of jobs.
I'm just curious because, of course, I think about, this is a big issue for those of us from countries outside the United States, I think about the brain drain of so many people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, who come to the States. Often they come for graduate studies and then they find themselves staying here. So it's really welcome. And we'll talk some more in a moment about what SpaandanB is doing in Bangladesh, but I think it's so important for us to realize that we have to give back to our countries of origins, in a sense, even more if we are so fortunate as to be living here, because our talents have been taken away from the countries that we came from, and they're over here now. So as you say, there really is a moral imperative to give back as much as we can. So thank you so much for giving us this, this historical context on SpaandanB. And could you now tell us about some of the projects that SpaandanB is currently involved in? I imagine it has changed over the years. And as you said yourself, recently, there's been this focus on COVID relief. But just sort of generally, you started out working in what area, and how has the mission, or how you are executing the mission, how has it changed over the last 23 years?
Right. So I will address a couple of projects for the listeners. And I also want to just mention what you said about brain drain, right? And so I think we will talk about it a little bit later. Bangladesh is a very new country. So what happened is we did not have the infrastructure to provide so many high-level jobs for our, educated individuals, people who are coming out of engineering. They're bright, they're really beaming with ideas, but we didn't really have the infrastructure to have all of them had proper jobs and really reach their full potentials. So I think it's not so much of brain drain. What I would especially when we see the execution of the projects. Let's say, it's not just that donating, because you see countries after countries, they have been receiving foreign aid for ages, but nothing changes. Why it doesn't change? Because we need the global solution, but implemented in a very locally, culturally responsive manner. And that's what's, I believe, missing from a lot of the times we try to help other countries. And this is one of the strengths that we have, because we know the population, we know how the education system would work. So one of the stellar project of our the organization is our 4 schools for the urban poor children. So these are children that are coming from households of working parents, day laborers, or house help, or all of these not very high paying job, very low income jobs. They may not have a stable housing situation. So those are the kids that are coming to our school. And not only do they get the education, the basic education that they would otherwise get in any school, we are also giving them nutritious food to make sure there is an incentive for the parent to send the children to school. We're giving them some music lessons just to give them a creative outlet. We are giving them art lessons. We are teaching them just daily manners and reading books and all of those things. So it became a very holistic place for a child to be. And one of the reasons that we came up with this school is, many people that work in day labor jobs, they leave their home very early, and probably they're coming back very much late at night. There are nobody, literally no adult supervision for young children, right? Maybe a 10-year-old is looking after a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. That's the reality in a resource poor country like us. So we decided to create a space where all 3 of these children can stay safe during the working hours of the parents. That's how the idea came, and then we kind of grew into 4 nice, really very satisfying schools. I mean, we really take pride in our schools. We love them. So that's happening with all of our input. We literally sit down and think about what are we going to do next year and how did last year go. It's more than just raising money and sending it. Another project, recently we collaborated with Trauma Link. This is an idea that the first responders, we take it for granted. Here, anything happens, we call 911. The first responders are here. They're giving you first aid. But that's not really very common in many developing countries. So the Trauma Link, this project, they are trying to train volunteers in this type of first aid, and who can go if there is a nearby road accident and just give some first aid, so that these people, by the time they're taken to the hospital, don't really die of hemorrhage or something that could have been prevented. And this has been, actually, we are seeing a lot of interest in it, and a lot of impact as well. So most of our projects come from either an EC member. Let's say I think of an idea, I'll take it to the team, they will discuss it. If they like it, they will say, okay, let's do it. Or some are coming from our donors directly. Somebody wants to honor a family member who passed away, wants to instate a scholarship, or do build a school or something like that in the name of the loved one. So we can do that. And the third type is the one that I just mentioned, like Trauma Link. We are partnering with other agencies that have some ground level expertise. They're already doing it, but they need a boost financially and project supervision wise. So all of these are, of course, we are here with the policy, with the discussions, and the execution happens in our Bangladesh office. So we are also registered in Bangladesh. We have 5 staff members. We have a volunteer advisory group, build up with all these really intellectuals who think about the country wholeheartedly, not just because of their interest, and not for any other interest in that, because these are voluntary positions. Same here. I mean, we are all a voluntary board all the executive members, we come from our different professions and do our volunteer work.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. What you're saying is that here in this country, SpaandanB is basically a fundraising organization and a policy setting organization. And the execution happens, and the project management, etc., that happens through the local office of SpaandanB and the staff members who are working for SpaandanB in Bangladesh. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that must make it easier for you to transfer funds as well, yes, because there are a lot of transferring funds internationally can be very problematic, especially if it's money going to a Muslim country.
Absolutely. So we follow all the legal requirements every year after we pass a budget in our board meeting that goes to the Bangladeshi government's non-profit ministry. They approve it, and only after that, we transfer the money, and everything is, done as just by the book. Everything is by the book, very transparent. So that's why we did not have any problems so far, either transferring our funds or using the funds.
Well, more power to you. So in this discussion, what becomes very clear to me is a very, very strong emotional tie to the home country. And maybe you could take a few minutes now and give us the historical context. I mean, we've mentioned the fact that Bangladesh is a poor country, it's a young country, but what is it that makes, what is it about the history of Bangladesh that has inspired this kind of fierce loyalty?
Thank you, Sarah, for asking me. This is our 50th year of independence. And just to go back a little more, until 1947, Bangladesh was part of British India. So we were a very small ethnic group within the very diverse, British India. And then when the partition happened, we became, just because of our common religion, Bangladesh was, tied with Pakistan. So we became East Pakistan for a while, from 1947 to 71.
That's how I remember it, because I'm old and I remember East and West Pakistan.
Yes, I'm sure you do, because, many of our parents of my generation, they have been citizens of India first, then Pakistan. Now they're in Bangladesh, and this is just the reality that we live in. So when we were part of British India, there were religious discrimination that particularly Bengali Muslims have suffered, and then when we became part of Pakistan, the discrimination kind of took away of.
We now had ethnic discrimination.
Yes, then we became victims of ethnic discrimination, even though we had the same language. And of course, that did not go on very, very long. 1952, we had a language movement, and many people think that's when the seed of our independence was sown. Then 1971, we had a 9-month-old, very bloody war with 3 million martyrs, and then about 200,000 women raped, and countless people suffered through all of it, and then we became independent. Now, because of this history, I think my generation is the first Bangladeshi generation. I didn't have any ties with the other places that my family has been through. So I feel this is our now chance to build a society where we leave out all these ethnic and religious discrimination that we faced, and create a place for all the Bangladeshi people where people can, perform their religion in their own ways without any kind of repression or any discrimination. But when we are becoming the citizens, we all are equal. We all have same rights, so that we don't have to, again, recreate the discrimination that we suffered. So I think that's where the strength comes from. And like you said, many people have moved out of Bangladesh, but most are keeping in touch in some way or the other. I can tell you the enthusiasm around the world just celebrating this independence. Sitting here, I mean, in the Bay Area, the pandemic has caused a little bit of dampened mood in that, but still we tried our best. We had our online celebrations. SpaandanB also partnered with my poetry collective, and then we put out a nice program for the Bangladeshis for independence and all. So that is the motto now, that 50 years we have survived, now we are going to thrive. In the next 50 years, it's going to be creating our better Bangladesh.
I hope so. Yeah. Well, to me, the again, it's a question of age and life, what life has given me. But I always thought it was very interesting that Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the genius behind the idea of microfinancing and microloans, was from Bangladesh, and it seems that SpaandanB is following in the footsteps of thinking creatively and making the most of what you have, which is frankly not as much as other places, but making it go a long way. Now, at one point, I think we were talking about how SpaandanB, though it's not really a microfinance business, but you have from time to time provided financing for local micro businesses. Is that correct?
So we have once in a while done that. And just a little bit on Dr. Muhammad Yunus, because you mentioned him, we're very absolutely take inspiration from him. And I also want to mention Sir Abed in this note here. He's the founder of BRAC, the largest nonprofit in the world. And he's a visionary that right after independence left his work in England and came to Bangladesh to literally begin an organization. And now that has flourished so much in different parts of the world as well. So we have some really good examples in front of us to go ahead. So in terms of microfinancing, we have stayed away intentionally from that, because there are a lot of organizations that are doing this microfinancing work. However, we have made one or two exceptions over the years. And one example I will share with you is a scholarship recipient from one of our largest scholarship programs that is offered by Imdad Khan and Sitara Khan Foundation. She's a graduate from that scholarship program, and she wanted to start her own entrepreneurship project. And what she wanted to do is create organic compost to help the local farming. So, and we saw a lot of potential. Her project proposal was really very, very innovative. And we thought, yes, this is somebody that actually has the potential to do something really great, not just taking Western innovations, but making it a local idea, using whatever available locally and what has worked for the generations before us.
And involving local people.
Absolutely. In a very short time, she is able to actually give jobs to so many people. And we are hoping that in the future, she's going to expand her work. And that's why we decided to really help her build the basic of this business.
Yeah, so she was a known quantity to you already because she had been a scholarship recipient. It's interesting how one project builds on another. If SpaandanB had not been in existence, this young woman might not have had a scholarship. If she hadn't had a scholarship, she might not have come to the attention, of SpaandanB as someone who was potentially worth supporting for entrepreneurship, and now she's an entrepreneur in her own right.
Absolutely. So we just had one reunion for some of our scholarship recipients. So this Imdad Khan and Sitara Khan Foundation that I mentioned, they actually provide the largest scholarship for higher education in Bangladesh. So far we have 7,000 graduates from those scholarship programs. And it's really heartwarming to see that these students have come from the very margins of our, of economic realities. Some are families of farmers, families of, maybe boatmen and others. And because of their merit, they came to the best institutions that are available in Bangladesh. And this scholarship really made sure they stayed in a school and did not have to drop out to find work to support themselves and the families. And we heard from a lot of the graduates how they plan to give back. So it's a chain reaction, right? I get help from somebody, I help someone else, and that person goes on. That's how we are creating this, circle of support.
Yeah, it's sort of like a revolving pot, as they say, is you take out what you need, you put back in what you can, and then the next person gets it, and it goes around and round. But it's not that it goes round and round. It's actually an upward moving spiral, because as the money comes out, it gets put to productive use, and then the next person puts it to a productive use, and so on and so forth. So it's beneficial. Wow. Really, I have this feeling we need to do another program at some time, maybe actually focusing on, more on the projects of SpaandanB and similar societies in Bangladesh. It is, to me, really heartwarming to see the development of a different model, one that can be, that can be driven by local concerns and local needs and local talents,
Yes. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And, in SpaandanB, what we have seen that every little bit helps. So we tell people, a little help goes a long way. So don't worry if you are not able to provide 15 scholarships. You can support one child. Please go ahead and support that one child.
Well, that's a really good question. In US dollars, what would it cost to fund a scholarship for a child in school as opposed to in higher education?
So in the school, in our current schools, we see that $130 per year can provide education, nutrition, music class, art class, their uniform, and much more.
Wow.
So it's actually not a very big amount for anybody working in the US, if you think about it. And then for higher education, we see it's about 18,000 in Bangladesh currency per year, which is also actually not a very big amount.
Wow. Well, my goodness, this is really eye-opening when you think about how much good can be done for, relatively from a US perspective, from a very small amount of money put in, what a big impact it can have. Well, unfortunately, we are eventually coming to the end of this. Is there anything that you particularly want to share with our viewers at the end of this interview?
Yes, so I'd like to share two things specifically. One is that, we are living in a global village now. So it's a child in Bangladesh that needs education, or it's an unhoused person in the United States. Wherever you can help, that would go a long way in creating a peaceful society. And in terms of the organization that we are running, we believe that Bangladesh is a resource poor country, but people are really resilient. The Bangladeshi people are our inspirations. So check out our organization. If you are able to help one child go to school, if you're able to help somebody in dire need, of some economic relief for the short term, I'll encourage you to donate. We are a tax deductible status holder, so of course, if you donate, you will get that benefit. And secondly, I would invite people to check out the Aditya.com, the cultural platform that I'm associated with. We are planning some programs with Bangla poetry, Bangla literature, sometime in February. So check back. Let's learn about each other. You learn about Bangladesh and I learn about you. And together we can be much stronger and build a really healthy society for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you came prepared with a slide because you're telling people to go to all these different websites. So perhaps you could share with us this information. Makes it easier.
Yes.
So here you have it. For anybody who's interested in supporting an organization that provides services to victims of domestic violence, you can go to Maitri at www.maitri.org. And I tell you, the SpaandanB website's fabulous. You should definitely go take a look at all the work they're doing there. But that's www.spaandan, SPAANDAN.org. And my friend Zakia is being very modest, but she does have this wonderful podcast, which is part of her website. So you can go to her website, the Aditya Betar, www.auditiya.com. And there's something special about February, isn't that right, Zakia?
Yes. So we celebrate the International Mother Language Day. That's also the language movement of Bangladesh that began our independence movement.
Oh, mashallah. Even if you don't speak Bangla, it is still interesting to listen in on a couple of the podcasts that Zakia has done. It's a beautiful language for one thing. And there is such a great feeling of joy and community on that podcast. I highly recommend people go and at least listen to one. Even if it's all Bangla to you, you should still do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for making time to be with us today. And I'm just so happy to call you a sister. And also, speaking of scholarships, thank you so much for supporting KARAMAH's Law and Leadership Program. I know that you have provided a scholarship, so we are looking forward to getting another bright and committed young Bangladeshi woman, inshallah, for our 2022 Law and Leadership Summer Program. Thank you so much, Zakia.
Thank you.